Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And a special offer to ImmaLetYouFinish listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/ImmaLetYou, ImmaLetYou. That's betterhelp.com/ImmaLetYou, ImmaLetYou. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
What's up, everybody? It's ImmaLetYouFinish on the Pantheon Podcast Network. We're your hosts, Court and Amy.
Hi.
It's show 92.
92.
We have a special guest today.
We do. Mitchell Cohen, who is the author of the upcoming book, Looking for the Magic. And we're going to break it down about all things music industry and the great, great Arista Records, which you and I remember very fondly. That was a great label. So Mitchell was there from the beginning, and we're going to, as the kids say, chop it up with him.
And he was at Columbia when I worked at Columbia. So this should be a great conversation. All righty. So the weekend just passed. How was your weekend? Anything good happen? Blase, boo. Did you watch this?
No, I heard Jesus rose, right?
He did. Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Okay.
He is risen.
He is risen.
He is risen.
That's nice. Nothing. Should we start off in a kind of, let's just acknowledge the passing of a really, really important
very
New York
influential.
DJ, very influential DJ and graffiti artist, K-Slay, who passed away
after a long battle with COVID. He'd been in the hospital for months. It's really sad. It's just
young. Very, right, street was the guy that premiered. Yeah, the guy who premiered Nas's Ether. So he was like the drama king, the drama show. So
a hot 97 legend.
Yeah.
A New York legend, though, bigger than that. But a really, especially the heyday of Hot 97.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he was on the air for over 20 some
and a very acclaimed graffiti artist as well. So very sad. We send respect to his family and his fans.
I met him maybe when I was at Violator, I'm thinking.
Probably. That would make sense. All right. So no more sadness. So Coachella, I didn't go. You didn't go.
Speaking of no more sadness.
No more sadness.
Yeah. Well, this is what it was. Lots of people who I see online on TikTok being like things like, I ordered a celebrity stylist to style me for Coachella. Then I see everybody else posting all of their pictures and their outfits and their things. I'm like, did any of you actually go to a show? I sort of wanted to. This is how I sum up all of Coachella. So this interview with a young person, very happy for him. He had his passes. Who are you excited to see? Well, I don't really know. I come because it's the people and we just want to be with people. Right.
It's just become a scene.
It's just become a scene. It's like they can give a shit who's performing.
It's like Afro-punk on steroids. It's like Soul Summit on steroids.
It's very like, it's actually like, so that you could just say, I was there. I was there. But and have pictures.
There was some music.
There was actually some good music going on. There was
good music, and a lot of artists, Megan Thee Stallion for one, and Harry Styles for another, debuted new music, which is usually not the venue you do that. Usually you don't bring out the stuff people don't know at a big show. So I have not read Anita also killed, I've heard.
Yeah,
I have not read any
Billie Eilish.
I have not read any negative reviews of any of the music. So that's the important thing.
Right.
Bringing out unlikely guest stars was kind of the vibe.
Well, that's always happens at Coachella. So it's
I mean, I love Harry Styles, but this, I'm glad he loves older women. He has shown it over and over again. But Shania Twain, really? Okay, fine.
Oh no, you can always bring out Shania. I love Shania Twain. Yeah. I love her.
But it just sounded great. From what the clips I saw, it sounded great. Everybody sounded great. It seemed to be a good time was had by all, and we'll see what the COVID rates are in 2 weeks.
Because I saw so many amazing just
maskless people
and outfits. It was everybody like, I'm at Coachella. Here's my look. I'm like,
well, the only person who can get away with that is Harry Styles because he had the best look of anybody. So, all right. So, also debuting new music, because here's the thing, we talk about you enough and you're just going to come through. Lizzo was the host and the musical guest on Saturday Night Live this week. I mean, she's very personable. Obviously, she's not, she couldn't keep a straight face throughout any of these things. I mean, this is a thing they like to do, is throw people in there. She was very personable. She sounded great. The song, I mean, what do you think of her new song?
Okay, so okay. So let me just say this.
I'm going to leave the room and give myself the Heimlich maneuver, and then I'll come back.
Okay.
Sorry.
And this has been in record time, and I do not know how this happened.
I'm not going to say it.
When Lizzo was putting out almost these records independently, and she had a whole vibe going on, I really loved what she was doing. Then it seems like she had the big breakthrough. We were all so happy. And then she seemed to have gotten a little caught up in the fame aspect to it. And if you ask me 1,000%, I think her art is suffering for it, because I don't enjoy this art. And she
think she's becoming too much of a thing, a personality than an artist.
And I think she's it's a very fine line when you've been working really hard for something. You have the breakthrough, and then a bunch of opportunities come, right? And you want to make sure you could take advantage. You want to help your family. You want to help yourself. But you can't lose your artistry in it. And there's something about her lyrics now that are just too literal. It feels like a stream of consciousness tweets. And I just don't think it's great. Like, I like the idea of a disco-tastic song, but I think
But this sounded like every disco-tastic song I've ever heard.
Thing.
I didn't
like the second one either. I'm your artist suffering. The artist suffering.
I think she's one of these people now that people just love her and it almost doesn't matter anymore. I mean, and she is, but I would rather see her. Yeah, she's got a great voice, but it's, I mean, I heard the song and it's apples and oranges, but the first time I heard the Harry Styles song, I had it memorized.
Well, the thing
I can't remember this song
at all. I heard that Harry Styles song and it immediately sounded like a hit song, right?
Yeah.
I'm listening to her song and I get where they were going, but I don't feel like it arrived at the location intact.
No, not at all. It took too many off-ramps.
When you hire a bootleg moving company and then your shit shows up fucked up. It may show up, but it's fucked up. That's what this moment feels like.
I would like, it's just going to, I just feel like in a lot of ways.
Like you want it to be better.
Well, yeah. It's just not that. It's just like 4 years, really, for this.
The art is suffering to me.
This is really just suffering. Sort of like, it feels like an outtake from a Bernard Edwards tribute record.
Right. And tribute record, not a Bernard
Edwards tribute record. Right.
Tribute record.
All right. But, we'll see. We'll see if lightning can strike twice. Because, I mean, she certainly is she's someone who people are rooting for. All right. So that is in her favor. All right. So you kind of turned me on to this Mariah Carey. She did one of those masterclass things.
Yes. Well, you know how there's the masterclass series, and Mariah has one out right now called Using Your Voice as an Instrument. And I honestly, listen, I love me some Mariah Carey. And I didn't always feel that way about Mariah Carey. When I was at Columbia, I have to be honest with you, I don't know if I really gave two shits about Mariah. I had my friend Bobby really loved her. I enjoy some of her songs. I didn't care. It's later that I've really started to appreciate, one, the fact that she produces and she writes. And I don't think people always want to give her that respect because of the Betty Boopness of it all.
Yeah.
But watching her in this, explain her voice, use her voice, talk about the industry and surviving it and being a woman and certain things you have to do and deal with and standing your ground. And you just realize how much she does and how she wasn't just a person that they said, stand in front of the mic and sing this. And I always appreciate seeing an artist break down their artistry. I could give a shit about who you're sleeping with and all that. Like, I don't care. But I love to hear them talk about their artistry and how they create, because Mariah is a writer and she is a vocal producer, and she never really lets people really see fully.
Well,
that
she's
side.
the genre, and it's funny because I was like, yeah, Mariah, whatever in the beginning. I mean, I liked a lot of the stuff, but I think at that point, the Mariah-ness of her was just annoying. I think the thing is with Mariah is that genre is never taken as seriously as any other. It's just not taken seriously. If it were a different genre, people go, she writes, she produces, and I watched little snippets of it, and it was interesting for her to talk about the power. I mean, all women know that women do not get treated the same anywhere, but we certainly don't it's not taken seriously. It's always assumed. And obviously, because she worked in a genre that is so producer driven, it was always assumed that she was not doing as much as she is.
Right.
Or did. Right. But I mean, if you take the Mariah-ness out of it and whatever that may be, she's written some amazing songs. Those are great songs. And they're songs that have transcended the beat of the moment type of stuff.
Absolutely.
So
and listen to them and listen to the intricacies of her background, the layering of those backgrounds.
Yeah.
The things she chooses to sing in those backgrounds. That is why I believe Destiny's Child always worked, because the harmonies and the backgrounds and the weight, those things really count in a song. Like,
sure.
And they make those moments, those little whispers and things, you know what I mean? And Mariah is really, if you go through and you listen to the ad-libs and the things that she chooses to do in the backgrounds and the parts of her songs, they're incredible. Yeah.
So it's worth checking out.
Absolutely.
All right. You want to do a quick fucking playoffs, whatever. I'm so pissed.
So the playoffs are happening. I'm watching them. None of my teams are in it. I guess de facto, because I was born in Brooklyn and I'm from New York, I'm de facto.
Yeah, me too. I'm de facto.
It's de facto.
I'm de facto.
Like, because it's the Nets, but it's like they're not my team.
Like,
I really don't have a fucking.
I don't have a dog in this show at all.
No, neither do I. Except, you know what? I would like to see Chris Paul finally win a fucking.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah,
he's been in the league for like 17,000 years.
Yeah,
and
that
he
would
does
be nice.
not have. And he's the president of like the Players Association. It would be nice if he had one.
Yeah, no, but I have no dog. I mean, the only reason I'm even remotely caring about the Nets is they're playing the Celtics, and I would rather do open heart surgery with a pencil than root for the Celtics.
And I'm just watching to see nice legs and round asses running up and down the court, because I mean that's all I got since none of my teams are in it.
Yeah, no, I just whatever.
It's gay basketball. That's what we do. We call it the gay playoffs.
Oh my God, the gay offs.
The gay offs.
All right,
Pride is going to be so good this year, Amy. Pride in New York. I hope you're ready for the gaytation that I'm going to force on you.
Oh, that you're going to force on me. Yeah.
All of June.
Okay. I'm going to be gone for the first 2 weeks of June, so I'll escape that.
It doesn't matter, because I am going to call you overseas and wake you up every morning and be like,
I'm gay!
And be like, and now I'm going to sing.
All right. Let's just breathe.
What? Who?
So, okay, some woman that nobody's ever heard of said something stupid about A$AP Rocky and Rihanna, and it turned out to me.
It wasn't even a woman. It was a man, this queen who no. It's some messy queen who they call a fashion influencer who decides to make a. But what upset me the most about this is there were legitimate outlets that picked this up and reported it as news. It's like no one does a lick of research. They just, if you feel like you're not, people try to be first, then everybody just picks up bullshit. And it's like, you spread this woman's name around, who's some designer. Rihanna is pregnant, heavily pregnant. She should be this should be the happiest time of her life. And A$AP Rocky, I know it caused hell over an RCA because they're getting ready for a new project, and you're putting out some really irresponsible shit saying that he's cheating. It's amazing to me that I believe in the freedom of press, but I also do not believe you cannot just make up some shit and lie and put it out as fact. Then everybody pick it up.
Excuse me, that's Fox News, isn't it?
I mean, well, that's a whole other story.
Yeah. So, I mean, not to be disrespectful, the news story lasted 24 hours. They're happy. They're fine. She's probably going to have the baby any minute. Looking at her.
Happy they're fine, but that woman was getting death threats. Rihanna and A$AP Rocky are famous people. They can, some regular person whose family is being threatened is fucked up. You know what I'm saying?
Well, maybe people should stop going to the internet for their news and listening to an influencer.
Oh, we're too late for that, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're waiting.
All right, before let's just talk a little bit. There's this great new show on HBO Max, I guess, or HBO called Julia. I don't know the difference. Called Julia.
I'm obsessed with this show.
No, you turn me on. It's about Julia Child, and it stars an amazing actress. And if you've never seen her in anything, she's a British actress, Sarah Lancashire. She was in Happy Valley. She's in Last Tango at Halifax. I mean, she's a fantastic actress, and she stars as Julia Child, and I think she does a great job. I think it's fantastic.
Listen, I think it's great because, there've been 18, there's been a Julia movie. There's Julia and Julia with Meryl Streep. And I find that when people play her, they tend to caricature this voice and make it all crazy. But this actually seems like a portrayal of her as a woman, flaws and all, and not some caricature of it's
very good.
It's really, really, really,
and it's a lot of fun. I really like it a lot.
And it's hard for me to get me into a lot of series. I have a list of things. Everyone's like, "Are you watching this? Are you watching this? Are you watching this?" And I'm never watching them. But I will absolutely tell you, this one I look forward to.
It's very good.
New episodes every week.
No, it's very good. So check it out. So speaking of very good, we have.
Well, don't introduce him because he's not here yet. So I don't want to introduce him with him not being here yet.
He's in the waiting room.
Oh, we have a waiting room?
Yes,
these are the things that Courtney doesn't know about.
He's been there since 5 to 4. Yes. You forget I teach on Zoom all the time.
It's like, come on, man. It's like, I can tell you how to get the show to all of our networks and all of that. I don't know.
How do you think you get into the show? I let you in.
Well, listen, this is an attack on me as a person, and as a human being.
No, he's recovering. Anyway, yes, Mitchell's here. Hi, Mitchell. All right. So we have a fantastic guest.
This show's a mess, kids. I'm glad you love us because we're a mess.
Well, one of us can read. Mitchell entered the waiting room. Hi, I'm the one who teaches English. Mitchell, the waiting room. Once in a while, I know what the fuck I'm doing. Very rarely, but once in a while. And today's the day. Circle the date on the calendar. All right. So Mitchell Cohen is a former A&R man and head honcho at Arista Records. And he's the author of the forthcoming book, Looking for the Magic, which is the title of one of my favorite Dwight Twilley songs. And so Mitchell is joining us via the interwebs. Hi. Hey, Mitchell, how are you?
Hey. Okay, let me just say this, Mitchell. When Amy
jump right in.
Because when Amy was like, Mitchell Cohen, I was like, I know that name. I know that name, and I don't know that name from reading the name. And I kept feeling like I know that name because I feel like I've heard Donnie Einer call that fucking name. I know that name. God. So then I was speaking to my friend Miguel Beguera today, who was Maxwell's publicist. He's like, "Oh, what are you guys doing on the show today?" I was like, "Mitchell Cohen's coming on," and I was like, did Mitchell Cohen work at Columbia when we were there? Because I feel like I know his name in a way I would know a name that I've heard a million times. And he's like, yes, he signed Maxwell. I'm like, boom, I have 2 Maxwell plaques on my wall. There we go. I knew I wasn't crazy. Hey, Mitchell. Hey, hi.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you guys?
Other than the fact that,
Yeah.
Exact that part.
You don't have to wear, Mitchell, it's okay. You don't have to wear a mask on the show. Don't worry about it.
Who knows where I have to wear a mask or where I don't.
I'm going to wear one when I sleep at this point. I don't care. I'm taking no chances. It's ridiculous.
I'm going to England next week for the first. This is the first time I've gotten on a flight since the beginning of this thing, and it's I'm a little apprehensive about it, to be honest.
International may be very different, though. This is a domestic rule. International may be a whole. I'm going to like a million different places in May, and part of me was like nervous about like, oh, I don't want to wear a mask. It's going to make me claustrophobic, and now I'm wearing all the masks.
Yeah,
like all of them at once. Yeah, I think it's going to be different. This is a domestic policy. International, if you're going on an international carrier, they can tell you whatever the hell you want to do.
We're flying on Virgin Atlantic.
Oh yeah. Richard Branson will make you put on a mask.
Yeah, well, we hope.
Well, let's so for me, when I was a Cub reporter, for me, I always loved Arista. Arista, I love how in this, it used to talk about how Arista wanted to be the sound of New York, and thinking about it and reading that, I'm like, yeah, because there was so many different types of sounds and Patti Smith and Gil Scott-Heron, and Barry Manilow, and like, whoa. So I guess just kind of talk about like your relationship with the label and how you got started and all that good stuff.
I was a rock writer. I was writing for Cream and High Fidelity and a whole lot of other places. And a friend of mine who had been a publicist at CBS Records said that there was a job opening for a publicity writer at Arista. And maybe I should apply for that. And like you, I mean, Arista, I had been buying Arista records since the label started. I mean, Horses was really important to me, and they had Monty Python and Gil Scott-Heron, and they had signed the Kings, and they had signed Lou Reed, and it just seemed like the place to be. I mean, I obviously was aware of Clive Davis's history. I'd read his book, and I knew what his backdrop was. So I just plunged right in, and I was writing bios and press releases and photo captions and all that stuff. And then I moved into advertising at Arista, and then finally into A&R in the mid '80s.
That's every writer's dream, to be an A&R.
It never occurred to me that it was a dream, because I looked like, and it's the kind of thing where, when I approached Clive about it, it was like, everybody wants to do A&R. I can't just give out A&R jobs. It's not like candy. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be any good at it. I've been pretty good at spotting talent as a writer, but I'd never dealt with song publishers and songwriters and producers and engineers. And I hadn't been out scouting, finding material. So there was like a trial period where I said, look, just send me out there, have me look for songs, have me attend showcases that you don't particularly want to go to. And if it's working out, then we'll see if it's like an actual job. If not, it's just something that took some work off your plate.
Wow.
And that's how that happened.
What was your first hit song? What was the first one?
The first hit song I found, 1986, there was a big deal about the Monkees. Mm-hmm. The Monkees were back on MTV. The Monkees were like around the clock on MTV for like a whole like marathon. And there was the idea of getting at least Mickey and Peter in the studio to cut some new tracks to take advantage of it, since Arista owned the masters from their hit period. And so the mandate was to find a song that they could cover, a new song. And there was a song by a local band called the Mosquitoes, called That Was Then, This Is Now, that I thought could be cut by the Monkees. And I sent it to Clive, and he said, yeah, and sent it to the Monkees, and Mickey and Peter said, yeah, not Davey. He decided to sit that one out, and it became a top 20 hit. And
wow,
that was like the first, one of the first things I brought in.
Oh.
And did you know at that moment, did you have that confidence? Did it make you feel like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing?
I'd always had confidence in my taste as a critic, but as you guys know, I mean, one's critical taste and the realities of the commercial world are, don't always coincide.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, a critical favorite usually means it's not selling anything.
Right.
I consider myself like a minor league part of the New York City rock critic establishment, and a lot of the things that we had championed were a lot of the bands from downtown that weren't breaking through. And but quickly enough, I think I got the hang of what Clive was looking for each project. And I began to have the confidence what to play him, what not to play him, what artists to present to him, what artists not to present to him.
Was there a certain kind of genre that you were, I mean, you talked about rock and roll stuff, but obviously Arista is everybody, like I said, Patti Smith, the Monkees, Whitney. It's such a far, far reaching. I mean, my lane back when I was writing a lot was more like R&B-ish stuff. And I just remember always being up at Arista for that lane. They were really well known for that as well. So was there kind of a lane that you were in terms of acts that you were trying to find or songs you were trying to find?
Yeah, more in the rock and pop area, although I had always gravitated towards R&B. And when I was able to do that at Columbia, with, Maxwell and Amory and a couple of other things. But I think, the assignment was to try and bring some rock sensibility into Arista A&R. And so I brought in the Church, I brought in the Jeff Healey band, some things that did well for us, in that area. And
did you bring in Iggy? Was that you?
No, that was Ben Edmonds, I believe. I think he was running A&R for us in England.
Those were sort of like his comeback records, in so many ways.
They were. I like those records a lot. Those three albums.
Yeah.
And so look, people always say to me, like, how did you spend so much time at Arista? Didn't it drive you crazy? I'm like, if you spend enough time in Clive Davis's office, you're going to learn how to do A&R. If you're paying attention, you're going to learn how to talk to mastering engineers and how to talk to song publishers and how to negotiate between artists and executives. And yeah, so that was my learning curve. That was my industry, apprenticeship, if you will.
So why this book now? Because I think it's a great subject and a great topic, because when most people like me, when I think of Arista, I've had friends who worked there throughout the years, but I always think Arista, Clive Davis. And then when Amy was telling me that this book was coming, and then I started reading through what, Ben sent us some stuff to read. And I was like, wow, you know what? I actually did not realize that it was, Bell first. And then I didn't know the whole story. So I really do find it interesting and amazing that you're telling this subject. What made you decide to tell?
There was a series of books coming out on BMG Books, the RPM series, on independent record labels. And they had done Sub Pop, and they had assigned Chrysalis and Slash and Excello, and I pitched an Arista book to them. Just to cover Arista the independent years when it was just on the runway for the first 10 years, and they gave me the assignment to write that. I got the contract to write that. Spent a year doing the interviews. Interviewed 25, 30 different people, did tons and tons of research, handed in the book in February of 2020, and then the pandemic hit.
Right.
And so everything yeah. So everything was put on hold, and I was sure like it'll come out next year. 2021 comes, and then there's a new head of BMG book publishing, and he decides to scrap the whole series altogether.
Oh my God.
Wow.
All the books that had been assigned were now in limbo.
Oh no. That sucks.
So we spend a year then. I spend a year between me and the editor at BMG trying to find a home for the whole series. Couldn't find a home for the whole series. Ira Robbins, I've known for years.
Oh, Ira's great.
He had started putting out his own stuff through his own Trouser Press imprint, book imprint. And I was talking to Ira because he'd written an essay for another book I was involved with. And I'm saying, well, would you be interested in expanding the Trouser Press book imprint to include other writers? Because I have this book. It's lying around. I want to get it out. And he read it and he liked it and he said, sure. And so we started working together on it. And so it's going to come out through the Trouser Press imprint in June.
Oh, cool.
I love that.
And why? Yeah, because like you said, Courtney, people have this perception of Arista based solely on, I mean, you're always defined by your hits. I mean, that's kind of that's how it works.
Right.
And so it's defined by Dionne Warwick and Barry Manilow and Air Supply and Kenny G and Expose and a lot of just a lot of pop and no apologies for pop. I'm a
but that's not what it was built on from the beginning.
And I was a fan of that kind of music. I found some songs for those particular artists, with no pride or prejudice. But when you tell people, when I tell people why I was drawn to work there, when I got there, like I said, it was a lot of great jazz, for one thing, a great jazz department under the direction of Steve Backer. Michael Cascuno was doing some great stuff. That you had like the old jazz.
Phyllis Hyman, those Phyllis Hyman, Phyllis Hyman records.
Norman Connors, Michael Henderson, a lot of R&B that I loved. Eddie Kendricks, Martha Reeves. Clive was signing a lot of interesting things in a lot of different areas. And say what you will about, Manilow, Manchester, all those people, they were by no means surefire pop stars. I mean, there's a quirkiness, there's an outsiderness, to, in the book, I make the comparison of like Lou Reed to Barry Manilow, and I'm like, people wouldn't necessarily make that connection.
They're both from Brooklyn, and they're songwriters. And they're songwriters.
No, look, they were born a year apart in Brooklyn. They're both Jewish.
Yeah,
and they both sort of got their start in what you'd have to call the underground. Whether it's like the Continental Baths or the Dom. It's like it was sort of like a rumble from not the mainstream. I mean,
it reminds me of different scenes in New York that were happening at the same time.
There was a cabaret, the cabaret scene at Reno Sweeney. There was the jazz scene at 7th Avenue South. There was Hurrah. There was Maxwell's Across the River, and of course like CB's. So, and there was, and Arista had his hand in all of that.
But it's also songcraft too, because all of these artists, I mean, whatever, Patti Smith may not be your favorite artist. I mean, she changed my life, but she may not be your favorite artist, but those are songs. I mean, those songs and Iggy, those are songs, and Barry Manilow, these are all songs. These are all songwriters. And that's really crucial.
Emmett didn't have to play the same.
At the time that Clive signed the Kinks, it was like a slump for them. Those albums on RCA that preceded Sleepwalker were not that good. They were conceptual, and they weren't, they didn't have breakout songs. But if you can't identify Ray Davies as a songwriter that at any moment can come up with a classic song, then you're doing your job wrong.
Right.
So the idea of the Kinks, even the idea of the Grateful Dead, I mean, and that was like, I get it. I mean, it's like, and I make the point that for Clive Davis, Arista was like a redemption story. He had been fired from CBS in '73. For a year, he took a year off. He wrote his book, and people were like wondering where he was going to turn up. And the fact that he took over the framework of Bell Records and built it into what he built it by drawing on all those different elements of New York culture, dance music, jazz, soul, new wave, whatever you want to call it, from Patti Smith to, Gil Scott-Heron. It's a remarkable story, and it's a far more multifaceted story, I think, than even people who give him an enormous amount of credit, which they do and he deserves, don't really understand that he gave his people who were running the jazz division such complete free reign to sign, like Anthony Braxton, like the most avant-garde.
Yeah, not a commercial artist by any stretch.
But what he knew from being at Columbia was that there was an adventure side to the market. Like he worked with Herbie Hancock in Weather Report and the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and so there was no reason for him not to carry that philosophy into Arista. Signed the Headhunters and Anthony Braxton and the Brecker brothers. And
Angela Bofill. I love the people that those early.
Oh yeah. When he picked up GRP, yeah.
I just listened to some of those records and the fact that that a lot of them did not sell a lot, but people got a chance to make album after album after album, and they're really great albums, and that takes a music man, a visionary who knows that some of these people could be one song away from an explosion because the talent was there,
Look, I wouldn't have signed Kenny G. I mean, let's be honest, but it definitely took some insight to realize that you could pluck, a saxophone player out of a jazz fusion group, and make him the biggest pop instrumentalist of his era. I mean, it's not for me, but yeah.
Same thing with like an Expose, right? Expose, what people don't realize is the first two singles that they released were studio singers. It wasn't the three ladies who ended up as the group, but he signed a freestyle group that sold millions of records, and they had several albums on Arista. There was that moment where freestyle groups and dance acts were getting signed by major labels in that late 80s, early 90s period. And very few of them really sold a bunch of records and got several albums, but he was able to take that genre of music, which most people would think of as almost throwaway, and have real pop hits album after album after album.
That's the thing. Anyone can have like one hit with a disco record. Yeah. I mean, they came and went. I mean, and you didn't always sell albums off of them, but we sold Expose and Taylor Dane albums. I mean, there was just some, I mean, this is the period after the period that's covered in the book, but it's revealing of the whole A&R philosophy, which was very different from the A&R philosophy that he inherited from Bell, Amy, and Mala. Larry Utah, who was running that organization, outsourced everything. He didn't really have an in-house A&R team. He would find talented producers, make production deals, and just, he was like a clearinghouse. And, it was more like, I'm going to fly to England and make a deal with Mickey Most and, and get Suzi Quattro. But he didn't, it wasn't like he was his own A&R person, really. He trusted A&R to the people that actually made the records. Clive just flipped that on his head, obviously, and became very hands-on with his own A&R department, Bob Fiden, Rick Chertoff.
Do you have a moment in an album that you're the most proud of that you A&R during that period? Is there the one that you look back and say, this was a difference maker for me?
A&R during the period covered by the book, but so
your whole Arista time,
But the whole Arista time, there were two. There was like when I heard a demo. The Church were a band that had been on Capitol and Warner Brothers in America without breaking through. And I heard a demo that had Under the Milky Way on it. And it just sounded like a smash hit to me, like a crossover, I guess, college radio to pop hit. And the fact that Arista believed in it, let me do that record was, I was very proud of it. And when I went up to Toronto to sign the Jeff Healey band, and we knew that they needed songs, and I went on a trip to Nashville and found 2 songs by John Hyatt, Confidence Man and Angel Eyes, and they broke him, and the album went platinum. My first platinum album as an A&R guy. So.
Is there anybody that you really wanted that you couldn't? Oh, I just wanted to ask real fast.
Jeff Buckley.
Oh, you wanted? Okay. But
I met Jeff Buckley, who's really amazing. He was amazing, amazing guy.
I brought Clive to see him at Chennai.
Oh yeah.
And that when I didn't sign Jeff, when he went to Columbia, there was a job offer on the table for me from Columbia. And I'm like, you know what? If I had gotten Jeff, I would have stayed at Arista and made his record.
Right.
But the fact that job was on the table, and I'm like, you know what? I didn't get the artist that I really wanted, so I can take this leap without leaving him in the lurch.
Right.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Are you saying, did you A&R the Grace album?
No. Steve Berkowitz did.
Oh, okay.
No. I did not. That was when I got to Columbia, Jeff was already a Columbia artist. Steve was making that record. I was just a friend to Jeff. He could come into my office and crash to get away from people who were like, on his case. Well, when's the record?
Did you know his dad? Did you know his dad at all?
I did. I'd seen his dad play, like at the Fillmore East, like
right.
But when I was a teenager.
Right.
But being in the presence of Jeff live was just one of those things where you never forget it. And he had like a regular gig at Chennai.
Right.
And every week, if a friend of mine was in town, I'd be like, you got to come down with me to Chennai. And so many people to this day say, I'll never forget when you brought me downtown to see Jeff Buckley. I mean, he had, the book is called like Looking for the Magic. That's what we do. He had that thing.
He really did have that magic. There was something super, super, super special about him. And I remember everyone in the building being really excited about Grace and then really devastated when he had just gotten down to Louisiana to start. I always think Memphis. It was New Orleans. He jumped into Mississippi, right? He jumped into Mississippi. I remember the building, people were crying. It was just, it was a bad day.
Someone came into my office and says, they can't find Jeff. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Well, he wandered off and no one knows where he is. And I'm like, well, it's Jeff Buckley. Even though he's at some girl's house or, he had an all-nighter somewhere. I think, he'll turn up. He'll show up at the studio like 5 hours late. And before too long, it was clear that was not how the story was going to end. And it was a terrible, terrible day at the office. It was
a really bad day.
It was hard. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask just I'm just curious, with Pete Shelley, was that when the Homo sapien era?
Yeah.
Or was it? Okay.
Yeah, Homo sapien. Yeah, that's when Arista was picking up a lot of things from the UK.
That was a risky move in a lot of ways. I mean, when you think about it, the Buzzcocks were great, obviously, and amazing, and he's an amazing songwriter, but to pick up him at that point and have him do that song at that time.
Yeah.
You know.
There were a lot of people that really believed in that record, and we had a lot of success in that genre. We Heaven 17 and Thompson Twins and Icicle Works and Haircut 100. And it was like Flock of Seagulls, for God's sake. It was definitely that was a whole different era. That was like the end of the Arista indie era.
Right.
Right before Whitney.
So my question to you is, as somebody who was really in a publicity realm, how are you finding records, at that juncture in that time? Like, people would just say, was it relationships that you had so people would play you records?
Well, you made the relationships, and obviously I had relationships in the rock writer community, and my rock writer friends would turn me on to things. Be like, oh, I saw I saw this band at the Bitter End last night. You should drop by. So there was that, and then the more you're out scouting, the more you meet other people who are on that circuit. You start to meet, the music business attorneys. You meet the managers and song publishers who are looking to sign writers, and then it becomes a community. It becomes, a network of like that. So. Yeah, it was a very fun time to be running around New York in the late 70s. I mean, it just was. I mean, it's like we were saying earlier, you could go, to 7th Avenue South, to the Bottom Line. We spent half our lives at the Bottom Line.
That was such a great venue.
I've seen many people at the Bottom. Columbia loved doing the showcase at the Bottom Line. I've seen everybody at the Bottom.
I was like, in the first 2-3 years of Arista's existence, I think they had something like 25 acts headlined at the Bottom Line. I mean, that was like home base. I mean, everybody from, the Alpha Band and Baby Grand and Rick Danko and then later on Graham Parker and Dwight Twilley and
For some reason in my head, I feel like I saw Bruce Springsteen at the Bottom Line when I was at Columbia. There was some showcase or something that happened that I was there for. In my head, I feel like I remember.
But he did those really famous shows were in 75, right?
The famous shows in 75. But right before I got there in the early 90s, when he was going to put out those two albums at the same time, I was not there yet, but there was a special show just for Columbia people. I
feel like it was at the Bottom Line.
Yeah, no, because I had heard, everyone was telling me about it when I got to Columbia. Oh, you missed Bruce at the Bottom Line. I'm like, yeah, I've seen him at the Bottom Line. I know what that's all about.
I miss that venue. That's old school New York. That was a
great venue. It was a great venue, great sound, great. Everything was not too big, not too small. So many
memorable shows there. I mean, Elvis Costello and the Attractions.
Wow.
It's incredible.
I saw Willie DeVille there. I think he played the Willie or Mink DeVille, and then David Chohan. Oh, so I have my new. I asked. So you saw the Dolls in their heyday?
I did.
And was it like the greatest thing ever?
It was the most fun you could have because it was first of all, it was the only thing really going on in the early 70s. I mean, there really was, it was like a lull, and I was just starting out as a rock writer, and I was looking for stuff to get excited about. And that was the thing. It was like ramshackle and sloppy and fun and like a celebratory thing. It was it was like a band made for rock critics, I guess. But
which is why they can't get into the Hall of Fame every year. I've seen them, but once after Johnny died, I saw them when they kind of got back together. But they seem to be such a noise that only New Yorkers can hear sometimes.
No one else really. I guess in England they kind of got it.
Right.
But it didn't really travel well. And then I did an interview with David for his first solo album.
Such a great album.
When I was at Cream, I interviewed David, who I love.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
When were you at Cream? Like during like the capital C Cream era, or the next phase of Cream?
The next phase 2.
Okay.
I would say. I was. Yeah, God, what year? Like, I started writing for them when it was still phase 1 with Lester and them, but and I knew him pretty well, but I really started writing more for them like in the early 80s, I want to say. I did like, the B-52s and the Ramones. I interviewed them, and Mary Ann Faithful, like after Broken English and things like that. So that was like my home base for a while.
When I was a kid, I've told Courtney, like, so I would go to the library, and instead of reading like 17 magazines so I could know how to put on makeup and find boys, I would read like Crawdaddy and Cream and Rock Scene. I knew all these bylines. It was just like so exciting for me,
Yeah, I was just like the next generation after Griel and Lester, and I mean, so I started writing in like, I don't know, 73, around 73, 74 maybe, writing professionally.
Who are you listening to? What gets you? Does something keep you excited about music? I mean, are you still listening to stuff, or? Yeah, I mean, I listen to a lot of older music, of course, but I try and listen more to like current pop. Okay.
Like Billie Eilish and Taylor Swift, and and
Phoebe. Who are those? Courtney? Have you ever heard of either one of those women? I've never heard.
I think that
they're underground. They're very.
I know.
I think there's some new artists on TikTok. I need to look there.
I've never heard of them.
They're very obscure, but
yeah.
But I mean, I have to admit, like the last shows I've seen were like Bob Dylan and Mavis Staples and stuff. Like, if you're over 80, I'll probably go to your show. And,
just so you can feel young, right?
That's like in that context. I'm youthful. But I don't get excited by any of the new rock bands that my rock friends tell me about.
Well, like, who are the new rock bands that rock friends are telling you about? I'm being serious. I can't think of like a new rock band.
There's something called Royal Blood, I think. I don't know. Matt Pinfield told me about it. And but I do listen to some contemporary country, Maren Morris and Miranda Lambert. And,
they're really good. Yeah.
And Eric Church, I've seen a couple of times live, and I always, he's great live. So but mainly I'm playing older stuff, to be honest. Which is why it was so much fun to dig into history for this book and find records that I didn't know.
Right.
When does Looking for Magic actually hit? First, everybody, you can pre-order the book now, right?
Looking for the Magic comes out June 10th.
Looking for the Magic. Here's the thing. This is a great...
Trouserpressbooks.com.
Absolute. And everybody, pre-order now, because especially all of you industry kids, here's the thing. Know the history of all of these places. It's really important. And actually, when people who are masters write something, you should read it. You'll actually learn some things, and it will help you in today's world of A&R.
And reading is fundamental.
Now, here's the thing, Mitchell. Now you're going to have to write another book and do about the Columbia Risk, because I was there. There's a lot of fuckery and a lot of things.
Those years, the 1990s, the mid 90s through the early 2000s at Columbia. With, I remember seeing Alicia Keys, 16 years old, in the Sony Club, play for us. And I said to Donnie, I'm like, this girl is like Laura Nero crossed with Roberta Flack. This girl is amazing. She was like a high school kid. Mm-hmm. We signed her.
I had her for years.
And then we dropped her, and it broke my heart.
Remember,
I was like, and
they couldn't figure out what to do with her. They had her for so long.
Because they didn't just let Alicia be Alicia.
Right. They weren't trying to make it, they couldn't, the image, they didn't know what to do.
And then when Clive Davis was writing his book, he called me up and he said, "Can you explain to me what happened, why I was able to sign Alicia Keys?" He said, "I didn't think there was a chance in hell." My A&R guy was bringing her to me and said, "I think we could get her off Columbia." And I kept telling him he was crazy, that they're never going to let her go and you're wasting my time. And I'm like, it's one of the saddest stories, because I have a CD of an Alicia Keys album in progress for Columbia.
I used to have that on tape.
I said, "I'll bring it over to your office. I'll play it for you."
Right.
I'm like, Alicia Keys. And I said, like, believe me, if anyone had asked me if I wanted to A&R her, which you thought they might have, because I worked with Maxwell, I would have jumped at it. But that just shows, like, nobody's right all the time. But
no. Remember, we had Neo either when he was going under his name Schaefer. Schaefer Smith, and he was signed. He had a full album,
and we dropped Katy Perry. I mean, it's like there was like a lot of strange shit going on, but at the same time.
But that's where Clive was good with women, because Clive could hear, especially with certain women, he heard something that other music people didn't with certain people, and he was able to make that magic with them.
Look, I talk a little bit about the beginning days of Whitney, and just this is a whole other conversation, but there were so many misconceptions about Whitney and about what Arista was trying to do with Whitney. I mean, I think if anything, aside from like the big ballady Michael Masser things, we were trying to make her seem more youthful and sexier than she was presenting when she was like a breakout in her mom's set, like singing like show songs and stuff. Right. She came with that. She came with The Greatest Love of All. I mean, that was already like in her zone. That wasn't something that anyone imposed on her. Mm-hmm. That was her natural thing. And I think, if anything, that first album, working with Kashif and Narda, maybe like mussed her up a little bit, but people only point to like the big ballady things.
Well, the second album is where Black people got mad, because remember, Black people fell in love with her on the first album. And then the second album to them seemed, especially when I Want to Dance was the first single, it seemed so pop. And in certain ways, it was actually very, very, very smart, because if he had just pegged her as a Black artist, I don't know if she would have gotten the worldwide success that she had. And I did that when I was working with Matthew Knowles. Pop was very important to him. He's if you want to be able to make if you want to be able to make your R&B records and make whatever records you want going forward, you need to solidify this pop base, and then you can do what you want.
Matthew did everything right with Beyonce. That's for sure.
He made Columbia go pop, and he started with Destiny's Child.
During the whole controversy about the first single from the first Beyonce album.
I was there for everything.
Oh my God.
And then I went to work for Matthew at Music World. So
I sat in that A&R meeting when they played Crazy in Love, and I said to my co-A&R people, I've never heard a more natural number one hit in my life. And then I had to hear everyone around me say, it's not going to be top 10 of Black radio. I don't really see it as the first single. I don't think. And we're the pop A&R people who are not even supposed to weigh in on this are like, no. There's only one song to launch Beyonce, and it's Crazy in Love. But there was, you remember, there was so much resistance to it.
Well, especially after the first thing they put out from her solo-wise was Work It Out. And they thought that, that was from the Austin Powers movie. And they thought that it would be a hit, and it was more funk, and it was kind of Black, but it was not a hit. And
it wasn't Crazy in Love.
No, and Crazy in Love was nothing else sounded like that at the moment. And it was like an explosion. To me, hearing it, it was like, this is
it. Me too. Yeah.
It's still the best song she's ever done.
As far as I'm
absolutely.
I really think, I also think it's one of Jay's best verses.
Yeah, listen, it's a declarative statement. I am here.
When you're in a meeting, in a room, and you hear a song like that for the first time, it's just like, like a light goes on.
No,
it's
I would. I love that song.
And to then hear people think that it wasn't the right record, I'm like, I don't know.
Right, but then the record comes out and everybody wants to take claim, right?
And then everybody is like,
I knew it.
Yeah.
Well, Mitchell Cohen, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Today.
Oh my God,
amazing.
This was such a pleasure.
We know anything Ben Merlis asks us to do, we do.
Well, but it's so funny. But as soon as she said the name, I was like, I know that name, and I kept feeling like I've heard Donnie say that name 500 times. I know I'm not crazy.
Or scream that name.
So I kept looking online everywhere, and I'm like,
scream that name.
Right.
So I could hear him on the 6th floor, from the 9th floor.
So then finally, I go to Miguel, and I'm like, Miguel. I'm like, and he's like, yes. I'm like, thank you. I knew it wasn't crazy. I know I'm not crazy. Yeah. So guys, looking for the magic, June 10th. You can pre-order it today. And you guys know what it is. Thank you guys for listening to us on the Pantheon Podcast Network, where we're here every Thursday. There are over 70 music shows. You know what to do. Love them all. You know what to do for us. Leave a star, leave a rating, tell a friend. Post it to your social media. Follow us on all of our social media. You guys are there. You know the Gab. And we love you. And we'll see you next week. Thank you, Mitchell. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Mitchell. Take care.
It's NFL draft season, and that means it's time to start thinking about fantasy football. FantasyPoints.com features industry-leading experts and prognosticators using proprietary hand-charted data to help you score more fantasy points. FantasyPoints.com is the place to go for whatever kind of fantasy football you play. Whether you play fantasy football, daily fantasy sports, or do a little bit of everything, Fantasy Points has the meticulously researched content to guide you to victory. And why wait for the fall? Fantasy Points also covers the new spring football league, the UFL. Join the guru, John Hansen, Scott Barrett, Joe Dolan, and other massive names in the fantasy football universe with an exclusive offer. Use code Pantheon for 15% off any Fantasy Points package, including the all-in package, with access to every article, tool, and data nugget that Fantasy Points has to offer. That's FantasyPoints.com and code Pantheon for 15% off at Fantasy Points. FantasyPoints.com, code Pantheon. Score more fantasy points.